What is this mess, you ask? Well, this is my workbench that I like to build. It's a rough sketch, or I guess a rough design of the workbench. I'll start with the front. So what I plan to do is have a table saw here, and the miter saw over here, and then the workbench top, and then I'll have the wheels at the bottom, or casters as they call, locking casters, 4 of them here. So I'm gonna be building this mostly out of 2x4s. The bottom will be like this. We're gonna have as it turns out, a entire 8-foot length here. So there'll be 2 8-foot 2x4 planks at the bottom here, 2x4 wood, and then 17 inches of crossbars across. And then I happen to have a why 17 inch? It's because it will make a 20-inch width base, because I have some leftover bed frames, or the bed platform, that are exactly 80 by 20. So they go from here to here, and from here to all the way here, extending into the table saw section a little bit. So this is the part for the table saw, and the part for the miter saw is here. But this is the the base part of it. So this will be an opening, or I might close it off. Then on the top view, it's basically just like this. I'll have two sections that will form the top of the bench. So essentially, it's going to be 2x4s with a 1-inch notch to fit the again 20 by 20, in this case here, 20 by 20 bed platform piece, and then 26 by 20, so that the entire width, because I'll have a 2.5 here and 2.5 here, the entire width will be 25. So the top will be 25. So I'll overhang the bottom a little bit. And there will be legs that come out, 2x4, 2x4, 2x4. Not legs, but I guess vertical structures that will tie the top pieces to the bottom pieces. Okay, so go back to this again here, is that the legs go up like this, or the vertical sections go up, and then there'll be maybe not sure if this will come all the way down, but it most likely will. And then we'll have another platform over here for the miter saw, and then another similar to here, another platform here. This I will probably use the cutout piece of the bed platform for this part. This I might just use 2x4s, and there goes my light. So for these pieces, the alternate would be to use 4x4s and put a notch in them to make them look like this. So one 4x4, and then the platform goes on top, the bottom piece, and then the tabletop will go right on top there, and it will just sit on the bottom, the base. Okay, so same with the table saw section, so that corresponds to here. So the parts list will be like this. Okay, so we'll have 2x4s here, 20-inch, 2 of them, 26 inches, 2 of them, 96 inches, the 8-foot section, 17 inch, that's a 4-foot, and then 22 for the legs, 8 of them. 15.5, that's for the to hold up the this part here for the table saw. Actually, no, not this part. This part here, 15.5 for the platform for the miter saw. And to make some adjustments because the thickness here, I thought it was 1/2 an inch, but it's actually 3/4 of an inch. So it's very important to know the thickness of the wood. Again, at the bottom here, it's also 3/4 inch. And moving on here, you got 6 inches and 5.25. Those are over here. 6 over here and 5.25 here. That's assuming if I don't use this alternate method. And so if I add it all up, I'm gonna have a total of 7 2x4 8-foot section, 8 feet 2x4 planks, 7 of them. And then the bed frames, I'll have a 80 by 20 or 20 by 20. That's one whole section of a bed frame. And then a 20 by 20, 20 by 26, and a 20 by 28. So 20 by 20 will be over here. 20 by 26 is here. 20 by 28 will be the bottom part here, which is here for the miter saw. All right, so that's the plan to go forward. And we'll see how it goes. One thing to mention is the height of the table. The casters that I'm using are 3 3/4 inch in height. So the perfect height for me, I'm not a very tall person, is around 27 3/4, 28 inches. The way to find out is you would measure from the floor to the palm of your hand when they are extended to the side of your body. So when I measure that, I get around 28. So I like to work comfortably. And so because of that, the length of these pieces will be different depending on your preference. So yes, for most people, between 28 and 30 inches should be good. You don't want to be reaching your hand up. You want to be at a comfortable height looking down. So just wanted to mention that. And so these pieces here that make up the height will all change depending on the height of the table. And of course, the width of these pieces here will also change depending on how wide you want the the table to be. I measured the table saw, and it fits the table saw quite nicely here. And also, this has enough room for the miter saw, more than enough room for the miter saw, and to put hands on each side here to pick it up. Last thing you want is for it to be too tightly fit in there that you can't take it out. You would have to put screw it onto a platform and do it that way, but I didn't want that complexity. Okay, so the first step is to make the base, which requires 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of the 17-inch crossbars. Do 3 first, it says. So we're going to measure 17 inches. Alright, so this is the base for my workbench. And let me just flip it over. Okay, so I put the casters on, but essentially it's made of a leftover bed frame panel on top of two 8-foot 2x4s and 3 crossbars. So one tip is to put the 2 long 2x4s on the secure that on the board first, and then that way it won't any imperfections in the 2x4s will not cause it to deform. Then what I did was to put the crossbars here like this sideways so that I can fasten the caster on. I didn't have big enough screw head, so I just used a washer or washers for each one, and so that fits very tightly. So these are locking casters. I believe they are 2 inches or 1.5. I can't remember now. I bought them so long ago. So I got them at Home Depot. And same thing on this side. So you got the casters fastened like this. What I found too is before even putting the screws over here to fasten it, the casters actually help to fasten the crossbar to the lengthwise 2x4s. Kind of makes it more natural. You're not bending the 2x4s too much to make it out of shape. And then in the middle, I put a one crossbar in the middle. Now on the other side, I just secured the top part on with some drywall screws. For the main structures, this one I kind of put it maybe too close, but these are construction screws. There's another one there, and another 2 there. Okay, so the this board from the bed frame was 80 inches by 20 inches in width. So because of that, the crossbar here is 17 inches, accounting for 1.5 on each side. And these long supporting 2x4s are just the way they came, 8 feet. Okay, so in terms of materials, 180 by 20, so whatever you can find, that will determine your crossbar length. 2 2x4s, 8 feet, and 3 of these 17 inches so far, and 4 casters. Okay, next I'll work on the top portions of the table, which consists of 2 pieces. The middle part will be indented for the miter saw, and this part here will be for the table saw. So essentially, we're going to build these 2 pieces here. This one here will so they will fit like this, 20 inches on one end, 26 is on this end, and then leaving 28 inches for the miter saw here. So the construction of these will be 2 2x4s of 20 inches in length for one of them, and then 26 inches in length. And essentially with a table saw, I'm going to cut 1/2 inch depth, I guess, or whatever the thickness of the board is, the top board, and 1 inch. So leaving 2.5 on each side of extra room, so 5 inches in total, which will make my table essentially 25 inches in depth, with the 20-inch width of the bed frame piece in the middle. Same thing on this side. 26 and 20 in the middle, overlapping 1 inch, leaving 2.5 on each side. So I've cut the that's a 20-inch piece, that's a 26-inch. So two pieces there. And on the table saw, we'll set 1 inch for the width over here, and then probably half an inch, or I guess it's let me see, I have the thickness on the diagram somewhere here. Should be 3/4 of an inch, and then that will fit the board on top, and then flush with the remaining 2.5 inches. So the thickness of the board is approximately, let's see, it's a little bit less than 3/4. It's maybe 5/8 of an inch. Yeah, it looks like it's 5/8. And on the table saw, I'll set the blade to be about, or the top, the highest point of the blade to be about 5/8. And I guess the width will be 1 inch. So you'll end up with grooves like this. The next step is going to be to cut across to get rid of the so we're going to cut about 5/8 out of here. Go back on to measure the saw or make adjustments. I always unplug, always. This equipment is not to be taken lightly. So I've taken off the riving knife and I guess the blade guard assembly, because that's the only way I can cut across the top or the bottom, I guess, whichever you look at it, the piece of wood. So I needed to have the entire table saw portion or table portion of the saw open. Okay, so the next step is to do the opposite. So we're going to set the top, the highest portion of the blade to 1 inch. And the width to 5/8. So you can end up with something like this. We almost got it. We missed it by just a little bit. So I'm going to raise the blade up just by a touch. Maybe 1/16, and then that'll do it. Okay, so you end up with a piece like this. The smaller piece, it's still pretty good. I mean, we can save it for something else. So the idea is that it will fit like this into the top piece, like that. Okay. I went a little bit, just a little bit too deep, but that should be fine. So the next step is to cut the 20-inch tabletop that pretty much reaches the maximum length that my guard can reach. So for the 26-inch piece, I will have to do without this guide. I guess not guard, guide, guard, whatever. The guide for the piece. I suppose I should be using a circular saw, but let's see how well this works. It should be fine. Okay, so that's how it fits 20-inch into the groove, and same on the other side. So that gives me about 2.5 inches more room on each side for a total of 5 inches. So the width of the tabletop will be 25 instead of 20 inches. Step is to measure out 26 inches and to remove the guide from the table saw. There we go. So without the guide, the trick is going to be keeping it straight, but with the line drawn on top of the tabletop, should make it a little bit easier. And there we have it, 26-inch piece, fits perfectly. We're at it, might as well measure out the final piece, which is a 28-inch piece, and we put back the saw guide, the table saw guide, which we will set for approximately 6.5, I guess 6 and 7, 6.5, 6.586, just under 6.5. So we'll set it to just under 6.5 on the table saw and cut the final piece. To fasten the top onto the two side pieces, I'm using 1.25 inch drywall screws. They fit perfectly like that. So I'm thinking I'll go from the bottom. That way I won't see any screw tops on the surface. It's going to go from the bottom, but I decided to go from the top instead, as it's easier to be flush with the two pieces. So this is what the tabletop would look like. We have a 20-inch piece there, 28-inch over here for the miter saw tabletop, and then 22 inches here for the table saw. So I'll have legs 22.5 inches that go from like this at the bottom, from the bottom, and it will kind of fit underneath this thing, this tabletop. So 22.5. Let me just see here. So essentially I'll have something like this, 22.5 plus 1.5, that's 24, plus 3 3/4 at the bottom for the caster, so that makes 27 3/4 approximately. And yeah, so that is approximately the height I wanted. That will fit my hand almost perfectly. So the tricky part now is to level these legs so that the tabletop will fit on top, and we can, I was originally gonna use pocket screws so that they go underneath, but I ran out of the 2.5 inches, so I might just make do with going from the top. The leg pieces, 22.5 inches that I cut with the miter saw. There are 8 of them, 4 for each tabletop So 4 for this and 4 for this. So we're gonna raise them up. I'm thinking of just fastening the legs to the side of the base, since the tabletops really won't be supporting that much weight. For the middle piece, the supporting part will be right on top of the base. The same with the this part here for the table saw. The first step was to clamp down one leg and make sure that it's straight using a level. As you can see, it's pretty good, looks good. And so clamp it down. So the next step will be to screw it on. It's on the bottom of the legs to drill through like that, and then with construction screws so 2 of those. And then 1 more on the other side. And there it is with the top on. Okay, so finally got this other tabletop on. So we have one here and another one here. So I end up making a couple platforms like this, kind of 2 bridges that fits the board on top for the miter saw. And then I fasten a couple of crossbars, one on this side and one on that side to it. And the board just fits on top like that. And there it is with my miter saw on top. So next step will be to put a platform here for the table saw. The height of the table saw is 13 inches from the top, so I'm going to put something on across to here like that. Yeah. Platform for the table saw, I've measured 13 inches from here down to there, but I'm gonna put a 2x4, which is 1.5 inch across to here, and same thing on the other side. So this is a 4 3/4 inch piece, 4 of them. And so this piece here, these 2 pieces I screwed onto the bottom and then onto the top like this, and then this will screw, we'll do a over here, 1 couple of screws here, and same on the other side. And then 2 pieces of 2x4 across 24 inches, and the table saw should just sit on top there.